This is Steve Brule with Studio Brule, and we are live with the Liberty Bells at 2:30 p.m. London time, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, and we have Catherine and Elizabeth and Belinda with us right now. Hello, ladies. Hi. Oh, you're all on mute. You can unmute your phone. So how are things over in London today?
Sunny. It's finally sunny.
Sunny. Wasn't it sunny there last week too? There must be something, it must be global warming.
For about 2 minutes it was sunny.
So tell us what's going on over there in London. I know there was just an election in France, and then last week we talked about Philip Davies, Jess Phillips, some other stuff like that. What's on your mind today? Catherine, do you want to get started?
Well, I think Natoya is trying to join us. I think she might be the best person to update us on the Philip Davies feminist zealots, shifty feminist zealot situation. Yeah, on the subject of Macron, I think everyone did expect him. I think everyone expected Le Pen to lose. And I just yesterday I was watching an interview on the BBC with, I think she's a young girl, and she's supposed, I don't know what her title is, but I think her title's something like Macron's gender equality manager or something. And she was asked a question, sort of something like, so hang on a minute, France has just missed out on a chance to have their first female president. And she said, oh, no, Le Pen was terrible because she is against abortion and she is against all of the rights of women. And that's not really true. I think she softened the party's stance on abortion. She's not entirely anti-choice. She's sort of anti the late term stuff. And I think the statement that she's against all the rights of women was a little bit of an exaggeration, almost certainly. And also,
don't exaggerate, do they?
Never. And what else did she say? That his cabinet is going to be 50-50, and she said there were too many old men on the last cabinet. So I think we might be seeing a Trudeau Mark II.
Trudeau Mark II, yeah.
In France, which is going to be fun. Lucky French people.
They certainly got a lot of problems over in France, if you believe the news now. I think there was another bomb threat or something just yesterday, was it, or the day before? Paris?
I mean, they're a week. France has problems every week with terrorist issues. Unfortunately, it's something that they just have a lot more of. And I've read about how a lot of the immigration into France, the people from the Levant, I think, they were areas that were more likely to have been colonized by France, and they are the areas that have more problems now, which is why I think France has just a lot more exposure to the areas that are very unstable at this point. So they do have a lot to deal with.
Mm. Earlier, before we went live, Catherine, you were saying something about censorship on Facebook. Did you want to elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, I think what the big story this week is that Facebook's hired sort of hundreds more people to kind of police, so to speak, hateful content. There's been a lot of media coverage about it. I think there was also a case in Austria where I think it was the leader of the Green Party. There was some Facebook group that had been, I don't know what was being said about her, but it was labelled, deemed to be hate speech. But an Austrian court has ruled that Facebook has to make sure that these posts are blocked, not only to anybody in Austria, but to people outside from the rest of the world. Right. As well. So I think I think Facebook is very much in the news at the moment, certainly in Europe.
How does Austria have the jurisdiction to tell Facebook what they can and can't show in the rest of the world? That's a bit of a arrogance of them.
The article that I read in the Times, that's all I can that's all I can really report back. I just think there's a lot of impetus now to really control what's on Facebook. There's a BBC Panorama program at the moment about fake news on Facebook and sort of how much money will Facebook making out of the fake news. I think some of these are very valid questions. How much, how we need to negotiate kind of what are the rules for Facebook, because at the moment I think there aren't that many.
Well, I'm all for no rules. I don't think these sites should be in the business of censoring anything. It's up to consumers to decide whether they're going to believe a news source or not. And in fact, consumers need to decide whether they should believe CNN or NBC or BBC as well. So this is just smacking of big business censorship, really.
I think the issue of from the rules of kind of political campaigning, what can a party be allowed to do on social media and what should they not be allowed to do from the rules of the campaign. I think that was being called into question as well by this panorama.
And that's valid, but it's not Facebook's job to do that. That is the government's job and the regulatory bodies of the government to keep tap of our own governments,
To me, the most concerning thing is saying that there's this problem with hate speech, and of course, it's who is it to decide what is and is not hate speech. And one of the reasons I started doing this way back 5 years ago, there was certainly within the UK, certain women's groups were invited to kind of collaborate with Facebook to figure out what material was and wasn't. Like, so they were supposed to be training Facebook to remove material that was kind of violent towards women. It was supposed to be removing images of women being beaten up and that kind of thing. And they ended up removing, I don't know if you remember the Stop the Bullshit campaign. They ended up removing stuff from that campaign, which was just all about debunking the 1 in 4, 1 in 5 rape stats and debunking the Mary Cross research model. And they did remove some of that material. So this hate speech thing is a slippery slope. It really, really is.
Censorship is never equally implemented. It's whoever gets holds the button ends up being the dictator. How about the other Liberty Bells there? Natoya or Elizabeth, or Belinda, you have something to say on this?
Why are you talking about this right now? Because yesterday, I've been on Facebook since 2008. Yesterday, I went to Facebook jail for 1 day for the first time ever, considering the content that I talk about.
How did you manage that?
So I have a friend who's very lefty. He's one of the remaining friends that I have on my particular account because I just don't have the patience to talk to any of the people that I used to talk to a lot on Facebook these days. And he's been showing him in some of the stuff that we're interested in, like free speech, anti-feminism, PC culture, that kind of thing. So I've been engaging him and introducing him to some libertarian people that I know, so he can discuss things with them. And he's so far been really engaged, and it's really promising to see that even if he still holds on to some of his leftist ideals, he's not acting like a bigot. And as a result, he keeps talking about stuff on his page, and then all his friends are commenting. And I've kind of, even though I've kind of disengaged with those kind of people now, I do say something every now and then to back him up, just to help him out. And we were talking about Tommy Robinson, which is quite big news this week, and a Nazi sympathizer, because I was saying that Tommy Robinson has been misrepresented in the media. So I said to him, it's ironic that you called me a Nazi sympathizer, or implied that I was, because there was two people that said that, and one implied it and one directly said it. And I've told you that I have libertarian pro-free speech values, and therefore I'm as far away from being close to a fascist than you could ever be, really. I'm an original liberal. And I said, you're the one who's a bigot, which I thought was quite appropriate. You know, it's just a stupid spat that you have in the comment section. And I got reported and not allowed to use Facebook for, like, I don't know how many hours it was, because it was part of it was when I was asleep. But I had to go through this long drawn out process this morning to get back in. Anyway, that's just an example. I'm sure most people have had worse than that than me.
Was that suspension a punishment, or was it like an investigation? So you'd been reported and they suspended you while they were investigating it, or was it like you will be banned for 24 hours because you've done something bad?
No, I think it was more of a suspension. So it wasn't really that serious,
Right.
but I thought what it was about was quite interesting. And I think it was because the word Nazi was used, possibly. But I don't know, because I was reading the community standards and I don't really understand exactly how that fit in, because it's quite vague to me. Anyway, I just thought that was quite apt considering what you're talking about. I don't know. I mean, if we could make a guess of how long Facebook's going to last with people like us who, you know, will talk about things that some invested parties don't like, how long it's going to last. Any bets?
You
Anyone?
could start a poll or
What do you
what do they call those things? Like hockey pools sort of thing.
I mean,
I think they'll go on for
Seriously.
quite a while, but this is across Facebook and YouTube and Google and all the Hangouts. I'm going to say, like, I've started up on Minds, and I know a lot of people are starting up on Minds, and I'm considering giving Vimeo a go for YouTube alternative. I mean, my videos on YouTube are constantly getting demonetized now. Yeah, I mean, one was demonetized just a couple of days ago. So this is going to affect a lot of people. Anybody who's not raw feminist is going to be affected by these things.
and it does seem that there is a very concerted effort to go after our communities on all of these platforms, and the way that it's being done is through conflation with actual genuine extremism and fascism with people like us who just have a different opinion. And I think the other side, I think, you know, with the whole PewDiePie thing, I think they realized that 52 million young people who watch PewDiePie just weren't buying the PewDiePie's a Nazi argument. And I think we've really scared them, because I think they know that if young people listen to us, you know, they're kind of not cool anymore. We're kind of the cool ones now. And I think there is this concerted effort to just drive us off these platforms and shut us up.
Yeah, I mean, there is that. I think at this stage, those big companies are getting so much money from advertisers that they will do whatever it takes, I think, to protect their advertising dollars. As long as you know, I don't think they're really interested in being a platform for free speech or alternative views of things. They're interested in dollars, of course. And
also, they don't particularly want to chase people off their platform. They don't particularly want to annoy certain communities. But at the end of the day, they just got to look after, you know, where their advertising money is coming from. And particularly for Facebook, I mean, I don't have that much sympathy for Facebook, but what they've been asked to do is to make a moral value judgment about every single image and every single comment on their website. And there's billions of comments going on there and images going on their website every single day. And these activists are expecting them to make moral judgments about every single one of those.
yeah.
And I do have some sympathy, because, I mean, how the hell are they supposed to do that? And of course, unfair things are going to happen if they're being asked to do that.
Well, anyone who wants to, I think the final word on censorship was delivered by Christopher Hitchens in his lecture of that. I can't remember the exact title of it, but maybe one of you ladies remember the title of the lecture he gave, or part of a debate on who, discussing who would you put in charge of deciding what is hate speech. And really, if you listen to his argument, it's the final word. You can't put anybody in that position.
I just had a message from Elizabeth saying that her computer is not allowing her to unmute herself.
Oh, well, let me just see if.
Oh dear.
It's not letting me unmute it either. Okay, Elizabeth, if you can hear me, can you hear me? Just a nod, yes or no. Okay, so log out and click on the link again and log back in. Okay, if you hear me with that, and we'll look for you. Just log out and log back into the Hangout. We've got people talking in the comments about Vimeo and about minds.com, encouraging people to go there. I would say if you haven't got an account on minds.com and Vimeo, it's a good time to get started and get familiar with those platforms and start to build your friends and your following base and look for the people you're interested in those platforms. Because I think YouTube is just going to continue strengthening its demonetization and chasing away free thinkers from its platform, and the same with Facebook. And Facebook, really, I'm only on Facebook because other people are on Facebook.
I think that's why
me too.
I don't really like Facebook.
No, I don't think anybody does.
I've got a Gab account, but I've only really glanced at it a few times now, and it is out of laziness, really, rather than anything else. I don't know if anyone else has got a Gab account.
I've got a Gab account.
That's promising.
The Gap, is that another website, is it?
Gab. G-A-B.
Gab.
Yeah, the guy who is the founder is a open Trump supporter, and I guess he's right leaning, and he's from the Silicon Valley. His LinkedIn, because I was having a look months and months ago. He was from Silicon Valley, but now he's branched out and is trying to be the next Twitter, I guess.
Well, none of these platforms should get too comfortable in their domination, because large sites, large companies have been known to fail by, deviating from the very things that made them successful, which is what YouTube is doing right now. Sorry?
Remember MySpace?
MySpace, there's a good example right there. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with Catherine. I feel sorry for Facebook. They're in a really horrible position. They've got the government and other interested governmental organisations just prodding them and poking them, and probably not being necessarily directly threatening, but when the government's telling you what to do, you're going to listen. The advertisers, I say they have more power, but I feel sorry for the governmental advertisers.
I think your mic is being overwhelmed by wind noises, Natoya.
Yeah, I suspect that's Elizabeth. She's usually outside.
Sorry. Yeah, I managed to unmute myself.
Are you smoking?
I haven't. I gave up yesterday.
No. Okay, we'll talk about that another time.
The sixth time this year. I've done a stint of 6 weeks, and I've done like 3 lots of 3 weeks.
Oh,
I don't know what I'm doing. I need some help.
Drink now?
Sure. Excuse me
Who's
again, everyone.
Who's going to update us on Philip Davies here? Any updates?
Okay, so I will. Not hugely from our side. So basically, we have been contacted by a third party, like a group in Bradford. Bradford's near Shipley, who have said that they'd like to organise a debate between us and the Shipley feminist zealots, rather than the Women's Equality Party, which is kind of the original enemies that we had anyway. But they're all the same, so they're all on the same level. But it's not with the Women's Equality Party as such. Although I get this impression that some of the Shipley feminist zealots, although they are sort of a mixture of Labour and Green and basically not Women's Equality Party members, I have a feeling that they will, in the coming weeks, turn their attention and say, look, we hate Philip Davies that much that we will be voting for the Women's Equality Party and defecting to them in a sense. The other interesting thing about the Women's Equality Party is that yes, Baba, I know. they're on their manifesto on their site. Okay, they say that they are non. And so I actually question their validity as a political party that they're claiming to be non-partisan. The very nature of a political party is to be partisan. So it kind of baffles my mind that no one more official has called them out on this. I think to myself that if another political party exists that has very specific aim like they do and calls themselves non-partisan, I think all of the usual critics would come out in force to hound them down, you know.
And also it looks like the reason that they said that was to avoid giving a position on Sharia. It was just
exactly
for them to not have positions on things that they don't want to touch on, sort of toxic issues, because they clearly do have positions on things that they have opinions about. So it's just a cop-out.
Yeah, exactly. It is a cop-out. And which brings me to something that I was thinking about yesterday when I was talking to the honey badgers with Elizabeth. There's an article by The Debrief, and it's extremely long. After a while, I was getting just bored of reading it. But, you know, these days, they don't always tend to be that detailed. So you win some, you lose some. And in this article, it's modus operandi is to promote Sophie Walker and the Women's Equality Party. It's fairly obvious that they're biased. However, go out to Shipley and interview local women. And the various comments ranged from being apathetic about politics in general and this attitude that no one cares about them in Shipley because, as I've mentioned previously, Yorkshire is kind of like the Rust Belt in America, where it's a northern industrial towns, and there's a big split in this country, a bit like what it's like in America with the two coastal cities in California and New York, where all the decisions are made that are London-centric, and that's how it's perceived to be. And I kind of agree with that too. But that's what they feel in that particular area, and then that's the comments she was getting. She also, when she was talking to some more local, let's call them working class ladies, none of them describe themselves as feminists, because quite rightly, most women in this country don't like the term feminist and don't tend to identify with it. And I would say that if they were serious about getting real support from local women in that area of a certain demographic, which probably makes up most of the area, then having a strong position on Sharia law and the effects of Islamic culture on women, on local women, would do them a lot of favours. And Philip Davies has been one of the only MPs who has actually taken a very strong position on it when he went to that meeting, and it was set up by a bunch of women who've been negatively affected by the brutality under Sharia law. So ironically, they're going on about how he represents the patriarchy and everything that they go against, but they won't have a line on Sharia law, and Philip Davies does. So it just brings me back again to the huge barrier that they have is the classism barrier. And as Belinda quite rightly pointed out in her speech at the Bath debate, feminism is about attacking men with power in society, the top 10% successful men, and it's not about working class men. And these women probably don't really give a crap about that. They care about their working class men, or at least their direct situations. So I don't really know how they're going to get around that in their campaigning.
Also,
that's my little update.
It's an area that voted strongly for Brexit, isn't it?
Yes.
So, I mean, they've got their work cut out there, haven't they?
Yeah, they do. There was another comment in the article that says, the reporter says, "Oh, Philip Davies," says to the person she's interviewing, "Philip Davies is known to be a misogynist and sexist." And the girl goes, "Oh, really? Is he? Well, then I don't like him." So it
That's
also
as deep as
revealed
most
the
people are
power.
going to think about that issue right there. They will hear it, because being accused of a misogynist or sexist today is sort of, it's like being accused of being a non-believer in Rome, you know, and in the Vatican.
Yeah.
I mean, you're out. You know, you don't even have to be. Nothing more needs to be said.
Yeah, it has immense power. And as I said, you know, I think these women are quite right to be quite apathetic and distrusting of the Women's Equality Party and politicians in general, from a classism perspective. But yeah, this word sexist and this word misogynist seems to cut through all of that, and it kind of triggers most people's brains into having this, as you said, religious response, this dogmatic response. And that's something I've been thinking a lot about. What happened? Where is everyone?
Are you gone?
Oh, you're still there.
You're here.
Sorry. No, did I go?
No, you didn't go.
You all disappeared, and I
us.
thought that you'd all gone. No worries. Yeah. So you know, and I want to keep having a chat because I want other people to jump in on this. The latest situation that kind of brings this into perspective is this morning. You know, I've spoken about Tommy Robinson. I don't know, I spoke about him on this channel, but I spoke about him on the Honey Badgers channel. So Tommy Robinson's a working class guy who has set up a march for an injustice against that has been done against a girl called Chelsea on Sunday. She was apparently gang raped by a bunch of and they're saying that her case isn't being taken seriously because they were Muslim, and the police are doing everything they can to keep it cover. And you know, he's quite well known now because he used to be the leader of the English Defence League in Luton, which is a kind of a group of men and possibly some women, I think, who were drawing attention to the Sharia law and of the Islamic culture in places like Luton towards un-Islamic women. Anyway, so this morning he's been arrested, went down to the courts to interview some people that were accused of being paedophiles or abusing young women who were Muslims. And he interviewed them as they were coming out of the courts. So they're saying that, you know, he shouldn't have been doing that, and he's being done under the act that I can't remember right now, but I can find out, because will come under hate crime and also kind of interference in a court case, even though he was outside the courts and it was after. Now,
he was arrested for
correct me if you guys
women?
think I'm wrong.
Can you clarify that a little bit? He was arrested for interviewing women outside of the courtroom.
No, he was arrested for interviewing men who were accused of rape and sexual assault, and some of it paedophilia. These are Muslim men, and their victims were non-Muslim girls. Yeah. So he went down there because he's working with Rebel Media now. And look, you know, his whole style is to go up to them when they're not, you know, unaware, and it's very controversial, and that's kind of part of the entertainment value for the watchers. However, I don't know much about it at this point, but I suspect that this is a way of keeping him quiet, if I was going to go down that way of thinking. Whether or not he's actually committed a crime is unclear at the moment. However, the reason I bring it up is it's people like him who are trying to bring out this culture towards women that is extremely brutal and, you know, stops their freedom. He's bringing that out, and he's being attacked at all sides. He was, you know, there's also a few other things that happened this week as well with him, where he had a journalist apologize to him on the Daily Politics show on national TV for accusing him of being a white supremacist, and he's never said anything. And now I think that people in Shipley, it's an area where they have had quite a few Islamic cultures growing, I think they're probably going to be paying attention to these kinds of issues rather than what the Women's Equalities Party is all about.
Is there a link to his arrest, a story on his arrest?
Yeah, so the People's Charter reported on it this morning.
The People's Charter?
Yeah, that's the website. I can't, because I'm using my phone, I'll have to sort of go and get it up for you.
It's okay, I'll look for it here.
I'm also having a bit of an issue with my laptop, because before I came online, I put it down and then my baby grabbed it, and now the screen keeps going. So yeah, it seems to be a afternoon of technical problems, sorry.
Okay, I'm just looking for it here.
But Belinda, I'm just interested to hear if you have any comments about the lack of attention to some of the real issues that the women in Shipley probably have, that the Women's Equality Party, well, they'd like to say that they care about, but we all know that they don't really. Are you there?
You're looking to talk to Belinda?
Yeah, I have silence from Belinda.
Yeah, no, I'm actually I'm listening with great interest, because this is a whole lot of stuff that I really don't know about, and I think it's absolutely fascinating. And I mean, I've read some of these articles, but I think you know an awful lot more about it than me, and I'm just listening and learning, and I don't really you know, I'm afraid
the reason
I don't.
I'm asking you to comment is because you've taken a great interest in the way feminism has undermined the working class family. So, you know, I just thought you might have a thought.
See, I mean, I would guess that the Women's Equality Party is not going to be popular beyond sort of fairly elite women. I just don't think it's going to appeal to people, but they are, I mean, they're making a real effort in London. You know, they've got these various candidates. I just don't know to what degree people are sort of aware of, I mean, I've developed a lot of arguments about how feminism has been very undermining for working class people, and how I think that, I mean, if you look at huge rates of single parenthood, I mean, this, I think, is a direct result of feminist neglect of men now for decades. And I don't think, you know, I don't know.
Attack of men.
Huh?
Neglect or direct attacks.
Well, I mean, for example, when there were, you know, when Mrs. Thatcher got rid of loads of industrialization, you know, that had, you know, that might not have been a direct attack on male employment, in that the process of industrialization was changing. But if there hadn't been feminism, people would have been saying, look, we really need to sort out all these businesses and industries that we're destroying. Of course they did, yes, they did. But I think that because she got so much support by providing services which women could be employed in, and because it all fitted in really well with what the feminists were trying to do, which was increase female employment, the fact that male employment, the whole male employment base, was being undermined, didn't really register and was never really dealt with, just as the fact that boys have been systematically going downhill in education has never been addressed or dealt with. And all of this is, you know, contributes directly to the lack of male providers, which is actually, you know, I know that a lot of MGTOWs would be really annoyed by the argument, but I've just, you know, I've been studying a lot of, the fact is women have a tendency to mate and up hypergamously, and if guys can't provide anything, then you just get single parenthood. And and this is, I think, it's a direct consequence of feminism, but I think that the links are not direct, and therefore people don't understand it, and they just think, oh, we're single parents and we're hard done by women, we need more feminism. It's possible people could think like that, whereas actually feminism is the cause of the disease. So I don't know.
Right on the nail there is that most people think that single motherhood epidemic it necessitates more feminism.
Yeah. I mean that's the real problem. Whereas actually it's a product of feminism, and I think it's making that link. It's making that link between feminism and swathes of men without qualifications and men without employment, and also making the link between that and single parenthood, because if you look at the data, as levels of unemployment go up, so do levels of single parenthood, you know, and however much MGTOWs might rail against you know, marrying men because they're providers, these are basic processes of sort of human nature, and you know, and until we and this will not be addressed with feminism. You know, we really need to address questions of male employment, questions of education, and that is what will benefit working class women, as will Philip Davis's policies for women in Shipley. I mean, I thought that was a really interesting point. I mean, gosh, actually they should, I hadn't really made this obvious, really. I mean, up there are the women who are being disadvantaged by Sharia courts. So I would have thought that Shipley will actually get a lot of votes. I mean, Philip Davis should get a lot of votes from women up there. I hadn't really thought about that. So it's all really interesting. But I'm to be honest, yeah, I've been listening.
Terrific. Thanks, Elizabeth. We haven't heard much from you this session. We should be drawing to a close now. Do you have anything you want to say to the audience? Elizabeth, are you with us?
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. Am I right?
Yeah, we're hearing you.
Okay. I've not heard all of it, to be honest, because I've got a boy home sick from school that I've been tending to. But have you mentioned of the forthcoming debate? Natty?
Yes, I have. I don't know when it is yet, but I'm saying it's going to happen. So we shall. I ask people that are interested in this to come and like our page and follow us on Twitter, and we will update you accordingly. We've also got a few other things that we are doing, but I don't want to say right now. But
yeah,
there will be some content. Yeah.
Can I just
some
ask, sorry,
exciting
what was that debate again? What? Who's that debate? Could you tell me more about? I know you mentioned it before. Could you just say again, Natty, about the debate?
So a third party in Bradford, they're called Bradford, on Twitter they're called Bradford Pub Politics, but they kind of do this kind of thing sometimes. They've said that they will set up a debate between us and the Shipley feminist leaders.
Oh, that sounds great. That sounds great fun.
Yeah, and as I said, that's not directly the Women's Equality
right?
Party, but there probably will be some people. There'll be some people probably who are now going to be supporting the Women's Equality Party there. I'm sure. So yeah, that's great, and that's something that I think that we will prepare for. It will be great. I also have spoken to the lady who wrote the article, as I mentioned earlier in the debrief, and I've said to her, would you like to interview some women who don't live in Shipley, but who understand some of the equality issues that Philip Davies talks about? And she wants to, so that's something.
All right, so we're way past our time now. Does anybody have anything short to mention before we sign off? All is good in London?
No, not really. Anyone else?
No.
No.
Okay, terrific. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And we'll be back again next week. It's a half-hour show starting 2:30 p.m. London time, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with the Liberty Bells. And usually we'll get at least 2 of the Liberty Bells, hopefully more next week. We've got 4 this week, which is a great quorum. We're just missing Paula Wright. So thanks for joining us, and thanks, ladies, for coming on again this week.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.